TG has a history of tea drinking dating back to the very first guild, when you can see that they had a tea committee. But when sipping on all of the thousands of cups which have been made at guild meetings since, have members thought about how they came to be drinking it? Here is a short history of tea. The story of tea starts in China in about 2737 BCE, and there are several legends about how the first cup of tea was made. One of them is about how Emperor Shennong, who was the son of a divine dragon and a princess, was travelling the lands looking at plants and herbs. As he sat by a pot of boiling water, a small leaf floated down from a bush into the pot. Shennong left the leaf to brew, and an inviting aroma filled the air. He drank the infusion and was inspired to give it a name. He called it chai. The bush, known as Camellia sinensis, is the tea plant still grown today. It was first used as a medicine and was believed to cure many ailments. It went on to be used in cooking and as a drink when it became more available to people throughout the country. In 750 BCE, Lu Yu wrote a book about tea brewing methods and the correct way to drink tea, and we're still arguing about that one. In the 1190s, the Zen Buddhist monk Ayosha Mayoan took some tea bush seeds to Japan. He cultivated the seeds around his temple near Kyoto and started the Japanese practice of whisked teas, such as matcha. The Japanese tea ceremony was created in the 1400s. The ceremony combines ritual and philosophy and takes place in a small indoor place. The first record of tea written in English came from a letter written by Richard Wickham, who ran an East India Company office in Japan. He was writing to a merchant in Macau requesting the best sort of cha or tea in 1615. Tuesday the 25th of September 1660, Samuel Pepys recorded having his first drink of tea. He was the first Briton to write about it. He said, "And afterwards I did send for a cup of tea, a China drink, of which I never had drunk before, and went away." He doesn't record what he thought about it. For much of the 1600s, Dutch merchants led the way in Europe's trade dealing with Asia. In 1600, the British East India Company was founded. Its involvement with tea grew gradually, helped by a royal event. King Charles II married Catherine of Braganza in 1662. It's said that when she arrived from Portugal to marry Charles, she brought with her a casket of tea. Since the Portuguese had been importing tea to Europe from the beginning of the 17th century, Catherine had grown up drinking it as her preferred everyday beverage. She served it to her guests and established it as a drink of the well-to-do. In response to the new demand, the British East India Company began to import tea to Britain, placing its first order in 1664, the same year that they presented £2 2 ounces of tea to King Charles II. However, high taxes on black and green tea meant that social tea drinking could only be afforded by the wealthier classes. A cup of tea became an activity associated with luxury. Tea became a popular drink in London coffee houses, where men met to do business and discuss current affairs. The tea being drunk at the time would have been an acquired taste. Between 1660 and 1689, liquid tea was taxed, and coffee house operators were required to apply for a license to sell it. The tea for the whole day would be brewed once, assessed by an excise officer, and then stored and reheated as required throughout the day. Picture the lucky visitor arriving late afternoon and being offered tea that had been brewed early in the day. Luckily, the quality improved after 1689, when leaf tea rather than liquid was taxed. By the 18th century, the popularity of tea had grown so much that people of all backgrounds wanted some, but it was still too expensive for ordinary customers. Smugglers began bringing it into the country illegally. It was in such demand that the amount smuggled in yearly was significantly more than that was imported legally. And a lot of it was not pure tea. It was adulterated with additions of other types of leaves, sand, and dirt. This was to make it go further. It may have even been previously used tea leaves re-dried for second sale. When William Pitt the Younger became Prime Minister in 1783, he slashed the tea tax from 119% to 12.5%. The new price meant that it was no longer profitable to smuggle tea. With a reduced rate of tax, consumption of tea skyrocketed, and revenue grew to a higher level than before the tax was reduced. This satirical drawing by William Dent shows William Pitt being attacked verbally by smugglers and praised by the tea buyers. More shops began to sell tea, and by 1785 there were 30,000 wholesalers and retailers in Britain registered as tea merchants. Thomas Twining's tea shop has been claimed as the first, opening in 1706. It remains where it started, at 216 The Strand, London. Afternoon tea is said to have originated with one person, Anna, the 7th Duchess of Bedford, in about 1840. Anna noticed that she was hungry in the long gap between luncheon and dinner. Dinner was served at 8 p.m, and she told her servants to bring her tea along with light snacks at 5 o'clock, and the fashionable followed her lead. In 1848, Robert Fortune, founder of the first tea plantation in Sri Lanka, then known as Ceylon, was sent to China to steal the secrets of high-quality tea production. He went undercover dressed as a Chinese merchant and was said to have returned with either over 13,000 tea bush seeds or 20,000 tea bushes, according to the different versions of the story. Tea thrived in Sri Lanka's climate. Ceylon Tea, Sri Lanka, became the largest tea exporter in the world in 1965. Up to the 20th century, very little changed about making a cup of tea until Thomas Sullivan is said to have invented the tea bag in 1908. He was an American tea and coffee importer who shipped out samples of tea packed in silk pouches. His customers were not supposed to put the bags in hot water, but to remove the leaves first. They didn't, and brewing tea using these bags became very popular amongst his customers. Tetley introduced tea bags to the UK in 1953. In 1968, only 3% of all tea brewed in the UK used tea bags, but by the end of the century, this number rose to 96%. In April 2024, the Daily Mirror newspaper reported that Yorkshire tea was the most popular brand of tea in the UK, but the tea is not grown in Yorkshire. However, you can buy tea which is homegrown. For example, in Cornwall, a tea plantation was started at Tregothyn in 1999. The first commercial tea was developed in 2001, and their English tea was then sold in November 2005 to Fortnum and Mason in Piccadilly. In the Vale of Glamorgan, Petersons have a Welsh tea estate. They began growing tea in 2014 as a mini project to see what was possible. They now have thousands of tea plants and tea for sale on the website. 9 ladies in Scotland grow tea in their tea gardens in Perthshire, Fife, Angus and Kincardshire. In 2020, they launched the results of their collaboration, 9 Ladies Dancing, which is 100% pure Scottish grown black tea. National Tea Day is held on April the 21st each year in the UK, and the United Nations has declared that International Tea Day is observed annually on the 21st of May. There's a lot more to the fascinating history of tea. So why not use these days to find out a bit more about it and enjoy a cuppa at the same time?